In this video, I want to show you some organization that we added to our garage. We've got two kids who are both active in sports, so we have all sorts of sports equipment that we've gathered over the years, and it's taken up space in our house and in the garage. So it was time to find a better way to store it and organize it. To do that, I decided to add some French cleats to a couple of our walls in the garage, store our golf clubs so they don't fall over, and have a couple of shelving units for frisbees, shoes, etc. So after I decided the location to put my French cleat, I went through and identified where all the studs were in the wall and made some marks so I knew where to put my screws. Now, if you're not familiar with the French cleat, it's just a board with a 45-degree angle cut on it. So when you put a matching piece on the top of it, it holds everything in place. Instead of measuring with the tape measure, I just marked out the length of the wall on the board itself. I just used a small trim saw that I had handy to cut the board to the correct length. Once I had it the correct length, put it on the wall using my marks for the studs, began to screw it in. To mount these to the wall, I'm using a 3-inch Spax construction screw, just a multi-purpose screw. These screws will provide plenty of strength for what we're using it for here. One real benefit to using these screws is that you don't have to pre-drill anything. After I have the first screw in, I'm going to use my level to make sure everything is exactly true before I put in the second screw and hold it in place. After all the screws are installed, I'll take just a little bit of spray paint to touch up the screw heads. Now let's move on to the parts that we're going to hang on the French cleat. When it comes to safety in this video, this is more of a do as I say, not as I do type of situation. Always wear your eye protection, always wear ear protection when working with your power tools, and always secure your work pieces. Again, do as I say, not as I do. I've got a small rectangular piece of 1/2-inch plywood scrap that I'm going to use. I'm going to start by cutting it in half into 2 squares, and then I'll take those 2 squares and cut them in half again on a diagonal. I'm using a guide for my circular saw that I'll clamp to the workpiece to make sure I get straight cuts every time. Once I have my 4 triangles cut, I'm going to measure them out and cut off the tips so I don't have any pointy edges. Once all the corners are cut off the triangles, I'm going to start cutting my 1x3 stock down to size. It's going to be the same length as one of the sides of the triangles. Once all the pieces are cut, I will take the 1x3 and glue it and screw it to the edge of the triangle. I'll have one board on each side of the plywood. Once I have all 4 sandwiches put together, I'll take the rest of my French cleat stock. You can see it's cut at that angle. I'm going to measure it out, cut off 4-inch sections. So here I'm using number 8 by 1.25 inch self-tapping wood screws. So this prevents me from having to pre-drill. Got the French cleats on both ends facing each other. This will let me flip it over in either direction later. In this next section, I'm just cutting the pieces for a shelf that will hang on the French cleat as well. It's just a matter of measuring out the pieces, cutting them, and nailing them together. So you get the idea. Cut the pieces, fit them in, and nail them in place. Now let's move on and take a look at the final product. So you can see I added some paint and some bungee cords to finish it off. You can see here this works for other items, not just golf clubs. Really anything you want to stand up vertically without falling over will work. Since you can flip these dividers, you can quickly convert this to a shelf system if you want to use it for a shelf. Now here I've used a couple of the gladiator hooks. They fit pretty well on the French cleats. If my cleats were just a little bit wider, they would probably fit tightly on the bottom, but as it is, it holds pretty well. Now finally, here's the ball storage system and another shelf that I built using the same process. You can see I've zip tied an air pump to the ball storage box. That is quite a handy feature. Well, that's going to do it for this project. If you made it this far and you found any of the video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you found it useless, give me a thumbs down. I appreciate any feedback.